You have entered into the black hole of real estate, a place for industry news, tips, and strategies. Once you enter into our vortex, even if you could leave, you're probably going to want to stick around. I'm your host, Ron Weiss-Sikarski, and you are now entering the black hole of real estate.
Welcome back. We are excited to be talking today about a couple of key items. Home flips. That question has come up to me more than a few times in the last month, and I absolutely want to talk about home flipping right now and how that's changing in the market, and the short-term rentals. That's a big thing going on too. So that alone would be enough to talk about. And there's one additional thing I'll throw in at the end, and that's just going to talk about, are you on track with your sales goals for the year, and why the number you have may be just a little off. So, the first thing that we should jump in and talk about right now is home flipping. And we know that in most markets, about 10% of the homes available would be home flips, something that's been renovated or improved so that a new buyer can move in relatively turnkey. And, for that to happen, there are investors that will purchase properties that are in some need of repair, improve the property for a profit, and they run good businesses off of that. What we've seen is the dynamic has changed as the market has shifted into a rapid price increase. And when that happens, it makes it more and more difficult for those investors, those business people, to actually flip the houses. There's business plans to take an asset, improve it for a profit. It's pretty simple. That's a flip. Because the prices have risen so dramatically, upwards of 20% in the last year, that there's very little margin for profit, and there's even less margin for error. So if you're a home flipper, you're forced to pay much closer to a retail price of a home and still find a margin to make it worth the time that you're going to invest. And we know that materials are way more than double. Wood is probably 5 times the cost that it was last year. Labor, if you're not doing the work yourself, is also probably double if you can find it, and the timelines are long to get estimates done, to get people on site, and materials. Not just the price, but the delay of supply chain. Windows could be 8, 12 weeks out, cabinets even further if you can find them. What's happening is that you pay more for the property, you're paying more for materials and labor, and you're waiting longer to get the materials in and the property to the market to be made available for sale. And because the timeline is longer, you're paying more on taxes. You're paying more on insurance, so there's more risk. If you're in Florida, it's hurricane season. There's additional risk. And the flip that might take you 90 days might take you 180 days right now under ideal circumstances. And we don't know where the market's going to be in December. So if you're buying today, it could be even higher in December, and it might be. If it's the same, you might be okay. If it's a little off, that last little bit of being off, that last few percent might be what you're making on the property. So it's definitely more difficult for someone who's in that space of flipping properties to make it work. And to give you some numbers, I mentioned about 10% of the properties would be in that flip category. The number last year in 2020 was about 7.5% of available properties were in the flip category, if you will. Well, the recent numbers show that now it's 2.7% of the market. These are national statistics I was reading on a major news service the other day, so I would, trust that they are pretty accurate. They would seem to me they've verified those numbers. It was a major news outlet. So when we're seeing 2.7% as flips, it's microscopic. Last year we're 30% below what you'd expect is normal, and now we're 70% below that. It's a couple of percent. It's threading the needle really carefully to make that happen, and at a profit. So a lot of the flippers are moving on to other things, whether it's buy and hold strategies or looking for different vehicles. I legitimately, not kidding, I've heard a number of them investing in other vehicles, such as stock trading on platforms like Robinhood and buying Bitcoin. Things I know very little about. Certainly not enough to make professional estimates or advice on those things. I do understand the housing space, and it's crowded right now. And there's a limit of the opportunity. So I can understand why people are moving away from it. But not enough to make it, 70% of the flippers have not exited the business. They're just doing something else temporarily. And I think that's where the market is right now as far as home flipping. So if you're doing it, fantastic. If you're selling with an agent, you've got some layer of protection. If you're on your own, you're on your own. And I'm not advocating one way or the other. I would just say know what you're in for. And if there's not a professionally licensed agent involved and there's not an attorney involved, doing it on your own, if you're experienced, you probably got it nailed. And if it's your first time or two, I'd say just be aware that mistakes are made, and that could cost you money down the road if you're not doing it in such a way that you're careful with it. So how about Airbnb? Hotter than ever. Income properties are all the rage right now. We know it. People are traveling. If you're in that Airbnb space, it's, pretty common knowledge that a lot of people are missing some of the exact compliance licensing somewhere along the line. Some municipalities simply don't allow it. I could go on a website and find a property that might be available for a short-term rental in an area where maybe that's flirting with some local regulations. I don't think that's news. But let's go on the other side of this. What if you want to do it as a business and you wanted to be 100% compliant? What would you need? Well, depending on what city you're in, they may not even allow it. But if they did, let's say they allowed weekly rentals, what would you need specific to Florida? I don't know about the rest of the country, but specific to Florida, you'd very well need a business tax license for the city that you're in. And if you're in an unincorporated area, they may not even allow it. But let's suppose for the moment that the city that you're in allows short-term rentals, 30 days or less, or minimum 7-day stay, something like that. You would get a city business tax license. You'd fill out an application, you'd fill out the questionnaires and whatever it is, and you pay a fee. You'll get a certificate that you have to post. The county that you're in also has a similar type of license for business tax. And then at the state level, you're likely to need to go to DBPR and then fill out the state licensing form for whatever it is. So if it's a hotel type of license or for short-term stay, I would let you do the research because everyone could be just a little bit different depending on the type of property that you have. So you've got those 3 licenses. You'll need an employer ID number, and you'll have to have a vehicle to pay the tax, the hotel tax. So if you're working with an online portal and you have all your licensing in place and you tether those together in the correct way between the online portal and you're familiar, the Airbnbs and the vacation rental by owners and things like that, you could have your own site as long as you're collecting and paying the hotel tax or the short-term rental tax in the proper way to the proper people. You're probably on your way to being 100% compliant. Now, with that, in order to get the proper licenses, you may need to meet with the fire marshal for an inspection, and they could look from anything from escape ladders to smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, and making sure the door access is okay, and windows might need to be a certain dimension and in a certain way to open up for safety and for escape. And then if you're just on the online site, are your cleanliness standards in place? Are you doing those things for health and safety? So there's a lot of pieces that you want to piece together. So city, county, state licensing, business taxes, employer ID number, for federal, so you can fill out a tax return. And I could probably continue to list right now, but if I've given you a list that started to feel kind of long, I would suggest it's not as easy as taking a couple pictures and sticking it on a website and collecting money, although I'm sure it's being done right now. And I am, not the enforcement division of any of this stuff right now. I just do know this. At some point, technology catches up to these things, and there's a push in a lot of local municipalities for quality of life to make sure that the neighbors, have peaceful enjoyment of their property. So if you're in I would say, a quiet residential neighborhood and you're constantly renting to a rowdy crowd of partiers that are up all hours of the night, at some point, if there's a complaint from a neighbor and it's deemed that your property is out of compliance or improperly renting or something like that, there are enforcement actions, and I don't think they're taking your house away, but they could easily make it difficult for you to rent. And I would just want to make sure that as you're going down that path, if you're investing in Airbnb, I just want to give you, the quick and dirty as far as what you would need to investigate if you're going to be 100% compliant. I'm not telling you have to do that. That's your choice in life. And I'm not here to suggest that you need to play by every single rule out there. I will say that we went down the path of it, and we really just took on, okay, so if we're going to do everything 100%, what would it look like? And some of the things I'm mentioning today have kind of come out of that list. And now that we understand how to do that, we believe that we've got a template for future investments. And again, so it's, the Airbnb space is interesting. And, there's definitely some revenue behind it. And it hasn't been that much more work and that much more expensive to get it a little closer to the line as far as being 100% compliant. And now that we're there, we're just looking for those last little pieces because there is money to be made doing it that way. Is it less than the other way? Maybe. I'm not sure. I know people that are trying to squeeze 4-day rentals out and when 7 are allowed, or, well, I would say I'm familiar with people attempting to do that. How's that for language? Holding your ground and saying, no, it's a minimum 7-day rental. What I've noticed is that somebody looking for 3 or 4 days moves to a hotel or different property, but quite often another renter, a few days later comes in and asks for the same exact time, and then you're getting the whole 7 days on the rental. So sometimes just holding the line and making sure that you get the weekly rental out of it in the space, it's more revenue. And it seems to be adding up over time. At least that's my 2 cents on it. The last thing that I want to talk about today is we're coming up in the halfway year mark. And if you feel that you are halfway to your goals on June 30th, July 1st, it probably feels good. Except in a sales business like real estate, most closings take about 45, 60 days right now. So let's just suppose in July 1st, you're right on target for your goal for the year. I might freak you out with this next statement, but if you really look at those close and pendings, they're going to take till September 1st to close, 2 additional months. And the question is, if you look at your sales goals on July 1st, are you where you need to be for September 1st? Because if you're not, my suspicion is you're going to fall about 15 to 20% short at the end of the year, because in December, those deals are not all going to close on December 1st. Some of those will go into 2022, believe it or not. I take a cutoff date of about Halloween and factor in that whatever is under contract by Halloween, that's probably what's going to close out our year. And November 1st, to me, that starts 2022. A few of those will probably close in 2021, and that's okay. But I think the mindset is that you would want to be sure that by November 1st, that's your year. And you turn the page and you get great momentum for the following year. So if you're on track for September 1st today, I think you're nailing it. And if you're not, that's okay too. You might be having an awesome year. But let's not get lost in the projection conundrum and feel like we're on pace to great things and wonder how we fell short at the end of the year. It's probably we're future pacing by 60 days, and that's where the gap is. So if you've got some questions and you want to drop us a comment below that I can certainly do additional bits about in the future, love to have those comments. And I hope that you guys are subscribing. We're well into our 2nd year of doing this, and we're beyond 50 episodes and moving towards 100. Totally enjoying this outlet for some of these thoughts and ideas. So I do appreciate you guys, and I look forward to speaking with you again next week. This is Ron Wysakarski for the Black Hole of Real Estate.